The Toronto Blue Jays are major players, folks. They're major players. They landed this guy, George Springer, one of the top free agents in this class, 31 years old, last year at 265, on base around 360, 14 bombs, 32 RBIs in 51 games on a team where everyone else was scuffling. He was not. So they go get this guy, and we talked about the New York Mets targeting George Springer, local kid from the state of Connecticut. You see the numbers on the screen. He's been very consistent at that top spot of the lineup. We'll talk about that in a second. But Carlos going to let you bat leadoff here because he's lower in the order. What do you think of this? When you saw the news that you were going to come back, your first day back in the studio for a while, and you're talking about George Springer, not to the Mets, but to the Blue Jays, what went through your mind? Well,
I was surprised. I mean, the Blue Jays making a splash here and really going after a premium player, premium free agent. And look, I remember George, when he was just a young kid, I was with the Houston Astros, and it was just impressive to see him hit batting practice, Val. It was ridiculous. I'm like, who is this kid? Well, I found out quickly that, you know, he has become one of the better players in major leagues. Look, when you look at the fact that, you know, 63 postseason games, and the Blue Jays total 63 postseason games in their history. How about that? 44 home runs over the last 162 games, but what he has done over his career has pretty much solidified everything I thought of him when I first saw him. This is going to be a great place for him.
What does this mean for the Toronto Blue Jays?
Well, last night we were talking about Kirby Yates signing with the Blue Jays, and we were saying the Blue Jays finally got their guy, right? We've been talking about them being a major player in the offseason this year because of COVID, because this is a team and an ownership that has a lot of money, the Rogers Communications Group, and for them to go out and get one of the top premier free agents, I think this is a mark for them. Mark Shapiro just signed a 5-year deal. He wants to win, and for him to go out there and get Yates last night and George Springer today, this is a huge accomplishment for this team, for this franchise. They haven't been to the World Series since, what, early 90s? Yeah. They want to get back, and Springer is that first piece.
Do we like the lineup? Do we like this lineup? Because, look.
I don't hate it.
I'm with you, but.
No, I love this lineup.
George Springer's 31. He's the only guy in his 30s on the screen right there.
He's a young 30.
I'm not saying he's old, but should his role on this team change because he doesn't have the more solidified hitters behind him, the Altuves and the Bregmans and the Gurriels and the Correas, those guys. These are younger bats. Should we put guys in front of George Springer and make him more of a middle-of-the-order type guy driving in runs?
All right, look, I am a traditionalist when it comes to that, right? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, this is a power guy. I want him in the middle of the lineup just like Val is hitting tonight. But look, if you look at his career, over 5,000, 3,000 plate appearances, 3,500. 77% of those have been in the leadoff spot. So his career, most of it, has been from that spot. So that's one of the things that I'm a little reluctant as far as making the move and making him hit in the middle of the lineup.
Is that a big deal? Honestly, is that a big deal, you guys?
Players, believe it or not, we like to be comfortable. I mean, you know you've had success in one position. It's like, let's have some continue to just hit leadoff if it works for me, right? Even though the Blue Jays did pretty well. They were at the top of the league as far as on-base percentage among the league's best. So they don't need him in the first spot, you know, to get on base. They need him to drive in runs. But over 75% of his at-bats have come from the leadoff spot in his career. How about that?
I'm thinking Biggio. I'm thinking then Bichette. Then I probably would put Springer, Guerrero, and then work my way down from there.
You know, you're talking about comfort. I was really always comfortable hitting eighth. You know, just put me down there and make sure I'm behind the plate. But for me, George Springer, you're signing this guy. Carlos, you talked about all of those numbers as a leadoff spot. I don't move him. I put him right there. He is a difference maker. He's a catalyst. We've seen what he can do in that role with the Astros. First year, yes. And then from there, it's a 6-year deal. I don't see him batting leadoff, you know, maybe year 5 or 6, but I put him right in that spot where he's comfortable because I want that same production from George Springer in that leadoff spot. I can play with the other guys there. Maybe Biggio goes a little bit further down, so he is on base. He had a 375 on base percentage
he's good at it.
Last year in that leadoff spot. But what if he bats 9th? So he's a table setter for Springer. going forward for those next 3 at-bats of that night.
And one thing I would like to say about that, of Biggio specifically, is one of the hitters that I really like watching, except that sometimes he tends to try to get on base by walking. And one of the things that I would like him to do is to swing a bat a little bit more. So I see Springer hitting at the top of the lineup, helping Biggio in a way, because it sends him a little bit lower, and then there he can say, hey, man, let's be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to walk, let me hit, and because I hit, I end up walking.